getting you there in the quickest time possible. The priority bus route has for over 30 years been the preferred mode of transportation for people wishing to beat rush hour traffic. The PBR, as it is often called, is primarily used by PTSC buses, red and also green band maxis. What many people may not know is that the route is also utilized by emergency services and custom officers in the pursuit of their duties.
The bus route should be a road designed to take people from, let me say, the furthest point, which probably is Arima, to Port of Spain in the shortest time possible. I think that was supposed to be the objective of the bus route. In so doing, what we do, we minimize man-hours lost on the road in traveling. And I think that is the greatest achievement.
Steeped in history, this route lies in close proximity to what used to be the Trinidad Government Railway Line, which was established in 1875. In those days, the train lines consisted of 156 miles of railway track and were developed from Port of Spain to Arima and then Sandy Grande. It also branched into other areas of Trinidad and Tobago. Over the years, due to varying circumstances, the rail system was replaced along the east-west corridor with a bus route, which was formally launched in 1977. This signaled an era of change in the transport industry, as commuters were now able to easily access varying modes of transportation. This maxi driver, who's worked the route for years, gives further insight into its history.
Since I joined the maxi taxi industry, the work has evolved over the years. In the earlier stages of the operation, previously maxi used to operate on the highway and the main road, right? After that operation, we started to operate on the PBR, and it started off by Mokoya Junction. During that era, maxis used to take like about 15 minutes per destination. By the time you enter Mokoya Road to Port of Spain, it used to take like 10 or 15 minutes. And then gradually over the years, the bus route was extended to Arima. When it was extended to Arima, the average trip per maxi taxi was like about 25 to 30 minutes, depending on road conditions, right? But what we have noticed within the last 5 years or so is that because of the heavy increase of traffic on the bus route, the average destination time is like an hour now.
The maxi drivers are convinced that other motorists who use the PBR illegally cause delays and traffic congestion. This not only defeats the purpose of the route, it directly affects maxi operators where it hurts the most, their pockets. They also pointed out that the money they usually make in a day has been steadily decreasing because of the length of time it now takes them to get from point A to B, putting a great deal of pressure on these drivers, many of whom are struggling to put food on their tables and pay loans associated with the purchase of their maxis.
If you examine carefully the course of our operation over the years, you will recognize that we have maintained our fare structure to a minimum amount, right? An example of that, in 1984, when I purchased my maxi, the value of that vehicle was $81,000. Today, a 25-seater is $500,000. In 1984, the cost of a trip from Arima to Port of Spain was $2.50. Today, the cost of that trip is $6. So when you look at the ratio of it, the vehicles have escalated over 100%, while our fare structure has remained below a certain range. So we are committed to our commuters, also because of the financial commitment. You know, despite the crime factors and the congestion and all the other conditions that we operate under, we still, remain that we have to ensure that we meet our family obligations or financial obligations. So we are committed. We love our industry and we'll continue to do that.
Red and green band maxi operators also say that those who use the bus route illegally often endanger the lives of other drivers and commuters when the police are on the route. Maxi driver Gerald Williams recently had to take drastic steps to avoid an accident with a private car on the PBR. He believes the driving skills he acquired over the years helped him to avert what could have been a tragedy.
Because they take the chances and they are illegal, they drive very careless. Like at one time, this guy who was using the bus route, when he saw the police, he make a U-turn in front of me. And that caused me also swing deep to the left-hand side to get away from it. That, however, the vehicle that coming down behind me managed to run in there. So these are the kind of things that they cause. Because of the chances they're taking, they cause severe accidents.
Another illegal activity on the PBR which has caused great concern in the Maxwell fraternity are PH drivers.
We have some drivers who, we say, pull bull on the bus route, because the bus route, when the Honorable Minister granted them the privilege to operate on the bus route, it was one of the conditions that they have 3 persons in the maxi, in their vehicle. What we found happening is that some persons use the bus route, enter the bus route with 1 passenger, and they will see a group of people and they will stop. And they will, solicit passengers so they can make up the required amount, right?
My experience on the bus routes is that sometimes you're driving and you're seeing people with P vehicles. Some people who have the P van license working on the bus route. It might be few and far, but they're still doing it. Because even though the transit police there, remember at a certain time the bus route still open. So 1 or 2 of them would still take the chance because they know it's 3 people and more. So they would still take the chance and they would see them dropping off. And then they would notice that somebody taking money. So well, waiting at this driver working, flying for hire on the bus route. It's that kind of unfair because as you know, we pay to use the bus route.
The question remains, why do drivers use this route illegally? Is it because they don't know the laws that govern the route? Or is it simply a desperate need to dodge traffic on the highway and the Eastern Main Road? Whatever the reason, scores of drivers who enter the PBR illegally often come face to face with the full brunt of the law. The police are working in tandem with the Ministry of Works to put systems in place to crack down on these errant drivers.
That has always been a problem, and that's the reason why the fee from $200, or the fine, sorry, from $200 to $2,000, we went in that particular direction to deal with the issue of the illegal use of the PBR. But I can tell you, as a person who's living in the East, going into Port of Spain on a regular basis and also coming from Port of Spain into the East, you really see vehicles using the PBR without the necessary authorization. So that has always been a problem. Now, drivers in Trinidad and Tobago, they're very shrewd, they're very smart, and they have an idea as to when the transit police would be on the PBR, and they have an idea when they will not be on the PBR. So you're going to realize then that at certain hours in the evening time, that persons will take the opportunity to use the PBR, and very early at morning times, when the expectation is that the police would not be there. And that's the reason why the ministry went in the direction of hiring traffic wardens that would help deal with the issue of enforcement, whereby in areas especially where the police would not be able to be on the PBR at certain hours, maybe the traffic warden would be able to fill that gap.
The Transport Ministry believes that wardens will have a big impact on this route, boosting enforcement and assisting the police in their battle to get motorists to obey the stipulations set out in the law. Recently, the Minister of Works and Transport, in the hopes of reducing traffic congestion on the highways, opened up the PBR to private motorists under certain conditions.
With respect to the recent amendment to the Highways Act as it relates to allowing private motor vehicles to use the PBR, it was an objective and an aim by the Minister to allow persons who drive private motor vehicles to more or less engage in a policy of carpooling, whereby 3 persons would be able to use a private motor vehicle and use the PBR to go into Port of Spain within specific time periods, from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. and from 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m., whereby those vehicles will be able to use the PBR with 3 passengers, at least 3 passengers in the vehicle, to allow that mass transit during the off-peak hours.
Since the route has been opened up, the Transport Ministry has engaged in some studies designed to find out about the effectiveness of the initiative.
The ministry engaged in 2 online surveys and also a field survey whereby passengers and drivers were interviewed, and they were asked whether or not they would have benefited from that scheme. And the results that we got, 97% of the respondents, they testified to, for having benefited from the scheme. And based on that, I think the minister is looking at ways in which it can be expanded, or whether or not it's going to be removed from a temporary basis to a more permanent fixture.
Members of the Route 2 Maxi Taxi Association agree that the trial run has been successful. They embrace the new laws, but remain irate about the number of people abusing the system.
The authorized maxis are the ones to use the bus route. They have maxi taxi permit that is clearly placed on the windscreen. The minister have the trial with private cars, not trucks, not vans as you say, and no mopeds. So you're not supposed to have no T vehicles, no taxis. It was something new. You open to trying something new. And the problem I think he's having with it is that people are abusing it. That they're not adhering to the rules that was handed down, like the hours that they're supposed to come on and come off the bus route.
Maxi taxi drivers contend that this situation is quite disturbing. They say it is hard enough as it is to make ends meet. What's worse, they are also forced to deal with merciless bandits on a regular basis. To date, scores of drivers that ply the PBR have been stabbed, shot, disfigured, and sometimes killed by those seeking a quick buck.
I have been working for over 30 years. In my time of working, I have been robbed on 4 occasions, and at one point, I was robbed at home in my house with 3 guns and a cutlass. At another point, I was robbed on the priority bus route. I am sure the guys that robbed me were not older than 19. They were between the ages of 14 to 19 at gunpoint again. And I survived all, thank God. I was just recently, someone stole my maxi taxi, and by the help of God, I was able to get it back.
My name is Linton Robinson, and I've been in this business since 1780s, almost 30 years now. From the beginning, when Dr. Williams bring on maxi taxi to help the traveling public, I was an owner, driver of maxi since those times. Let me tell you, I just start everybody come in my vehicle, I just warn them. Even if you're talking on a cell phone, which I see happen many times, the buzzer will ring, and these guys will just come out and snatch your phone and run. Snatch your phone and run. You're not safe. Anybody come in your vehicle, you have to be uneasy.
I started to work the maxi on the green band route, and then I moved across to the red band. So it's 24 years now I'm in the business. Because the work is a bit slow on the green band. And then my family had maxi on the red band, so I decided to work with my family in it. And in the past 24 years, I had 7 robberies, in which twice I had to fight for my life. Right? In one experience, this guy came and, put a gun to my head and tell me to pass everything. And because it was a face-to-face interaction, I was able to maneuver everything and deal with the situation.
Robberies, pillage, and reckless illegal drivers on the PBR are just some of the problems facing these maxi owners and operators who risk life and limb, dedicating their lives to ensuring that commuters get to and from their destination on a daily basis.
Well, the maxi taxi industry, a lot of people view it outside there as a bed of roses, but it is not. It is hard work. The operators, most operators, we work out like a 16-hour day, 16 hours, 17 hours. The risk, we have a lot of risk. Well, we know with the crime situation, the robberies and things, we face a lot of robberies. We have a lot of drivers, it deter a lot of drivers from working late into the night. Some of them have no other choice, but have to do it to meet their financial commitments. They have no other choice but to be outside. It's unsafe, but what are you going to do?
For these maxi operators, help is on the way. Their problems are being tackled head-on by the police, who intend to engage in more roadblocks and exercises along the bus route. According to Acting Commissioner of Police Mobile, Wayne Richards, the visibility of the police along the PBR is expected to increase exponentially. He says a crackdown on those bent on breaking the law is set to begin.
Anyone who is taking a serious look of what is happening in the area observe that there's a considerable amount of more police activity on the roadway, both in terms of roadblock exercises that are focusing on crime and those that are focusing on traffic offenses. You will observe that we have more vehicles out and more manpower out.
Meanwhile, President of the Route 2 Maxi Taxi Association applauded the recent exercises by law enforcement.
We have Assistant Superintendent Phillips. I think he do an excellent job when he's out there, because he's a man, he don't want to hear if you're a police officer, if you're a licensed officer, you're not supposed to be on the bus route, you're not supposed to be at this time in charge. The problem with the bus route is that once you clog the bus route, you'll have a problem with transportation. Because if your transportation is allowed to move freely, then you transport more people. But because at the end of the day, if we are stuck in traffic jam, it's not only going to mess up our driver's schedule, but if a driver is supposed to say, well, look, he average to make 3 trips or 4 trips, and he's making 3 or 2, then somebody's getting left behind. You have PTSC that also run the bus route, and they run on scheduled time. So if a bus is supposed to take a certain time to go, a reman come back and it's stuck in traffic, right, then it messes up their schedule also.
PTSC admits that on occasion it has encountered some problems because of the congestion on the bus route, noting delays in its service. However, steps have been taken to ensure commuters are not affected.
We have become much more aggressive on the platform here at CityGate, that supervisors now are walking the floor with a little more vigilance in their step, that when a line is seen to be sneaking around the corner, they will call out a bus that's waiting to go on a route later on to shuttle those people out.
The corporation has also made the commitment to work along with the police to stop the illegal activities on the PBR.
The transit police is going to have a permanent office at CityGate, and their patrolling of the bus route area and so on would, as a result, be increased because of their location here. So again, those who use the bus route now with impunity only have a matter of days, if not hours, before they are caught.
There are also plans afoot to use the latest technology to ensure that passengers know precisely where and when to get a bus. The aim is to open up an avenue for commuters to get first-hand information about any delays along the route.
We are tendering for a GPS system. This way we have a lot of our enthusiasm and hope for this as it fits into our plan to have PTSC as the transportation option of first choice of the commuting public. Because our vision is that you're standing on a platform or somewhere next to a bus terminus, you pull out your phone that's hooked up to the internet and so on, and you could locate the closest bus and decide, and that will take about 5 minutes for a bus to reach you, or it may take an hour, and then you will decide, listen, I could wait for the bus, or I could seek an alternative form of transport. Additionally, the GPS system and its additions will add some new information and new dynamics to the management of the fleet, in that we'll be able to monitor fuel consumption, oil, and a host of other things, passengers on the bus and so on, which will be able to allow PTSC management to better make decisions and judgment based on the demand and the wear and tear on the vehicle, and thereby, by extension, better serve the commuting public of Trinidad and Tobago.
The new PTSC board is also moving full steam ahead as it seeks to fulfill one of the mandates set out by the state. The corporation is extending its services, increasing its fleet of buses, and making concessions for the most vulnerable sections of this society.
The happy commuter that are now enjoying a bus service in areas that they have never had, such as Talparo, La Saiva, the airport, Siparia, Lands for May and Tobago. Currently, right now, we have tendered for handicap buses. When we came into office, the handicap buses that existed in PTSC were not working and could not be fixed. They were allowed to deteriorate to the extent where it was uneconomical to revive these buses onto the road. So we are now tendering for buses, and we are hopeful by October this year we will have about 19 buses for the differently abled community in Trinidad and Tobago. So that process is something that we could materialize before Christmas.
Furthermore, a commitment made by the state has been fulfilled by PTSC. Students in uniform can now use the bus service free of charge. This, along with a host of other initiatives, are designed to improve this vital part of our transportation sector.
The facelift at CityGate is a personification of the facelift of PTSC. For the last 8 years, under the previous administration, the main hub of PTSC was allowed to deteriorate as it was ignored, despite the fact that there has been monies allocated for these enhancement of this main area. Bear in mind, this board was only appointed in November 29, so let's say effectively December 2010. So with 6 months under our belt, we decided that we needed to address the area where thousands of people come in every day.
In addition to fixing these problems at CityGate, PTSC will soon launch a public awareness campaign geared to encourage citizens to leave their vehicles at home and to make even greater use of the public transport system. To achieve this objective, efforts will be made to ensure the service becomes reliable. Additionally, steps will then be taken to repair and improve the hubs located along the priority bus route. It is hoped that these improvements will motivate more people to use the bus service, which in turn will reduce traffic congestion on the highways. It will also aid in this country's effort to be more environmentally friendly.
We have plans to enhance the terminals at Arima, in Sanwa, in Tunapuna, Kirep, Chaguana, San Fernando, build a new one in Rio Claro, and eventually one in Siparia as well, in addition to the development of, which has started already in Tobago as well. That we fix these buses that were off the schedule, and people are seeing an enhancement in the service, the timeliness of the buses, and realize the convenience that it offers. You don't have to fight up for a park when you come into Port of Spain and so on. There's an increasing demand from more and more areas that we provide and service. So one of the things that we have written to our line minister for authority to purchase 100 more buses.
Change is on the horizon for the transportation sector. What these agencies are hoping for now is for members of the public to utilize the services available, and for those who are hindering the process by creating traffic congestion along the bus route to desist from such activities. If the plans and strategies of PTSC, the police, and the Ministry of Works and Transportation are to be effective, citizens must adhere to the laws. The Transport Ministry say those who refuse to obey will soon face harsher stipulations, as the police are given additional tools to effectively perform their job.
One of my objectives in the next year or so, when the Motor Vehicle Authority comes on stream, my next objective would be to ensure that we have laws in Trinidad and Tobago that would install speed cameras, provide for the installation of speed cameras on some of the major highways in Trinidad and Tobago to deal with the issue of speeding, and I have no doubts it is also going to deal with the high incidence of road fatality that we presently experiencing.
Additionally, the Ministry of Works and Transport, along with key stakeholders, are planning to use statistics and data analysis to effect change in the policies and laws that deal with road safety and traffic management on the bus route and highways. The plan will ensure that proper solutions are devised to create lasting and beneficial results.
We met with Arrival Live. We met with some professionals at the level of University of Trinidad and Tobago, the University of the West Indies, the Insurance Association, the Ministry of Health, and persons who can have data that would assist in formulating policies to deal with some of the problems that we are having with our motor vehicle laws and the lawlessness that take place on the nation's road, especially the road fatality rate. As a result of that, a decision was taken preliminarily to establish a National Road Safety Committee. And that committee would work together with the ministry to look at collating data as it relates to all aspects of motor vehicle laws. And the purpose of that committee is to have a permanent fixture as it relates to gathering data on the behavior of drivers.
The data collected would be assessed from a scientific perspective before it is further processed and used to formulate strategies that would directly impact the transportation sector.
The data collected is going to be analyzed. The experts are going to look at it, and they are going to advise us as to how to formulate policies to deal with the problem. So, like for instance, you have issue whereby on certain parts of the highways, a lot of accidents take place. That is probably because of some engineering defect or some other issue that might be existing there at that point in time. And that committee will be able to advise us as to what is the problem. If it's an engineering defect, it is going to be dealt with. If it's an issue as it relates to some problem or whatever challenge it might be, the law is going to be amended as it depending on the advice that we get from the experts.
Other initiatives geared to changing attitudes about road safety and laws are also being hammered out and fine-tuned. For instance, there may soon be laws to govern the maxi-taxi industry.
Presently, we realize that as we seek to engage maxi-taxi in formulating policy that would affect their interests, there needs to be the creation of that maxi-taxi advisory committee at the level of the ministry, so that whatever decision is taken that could affect maxi-taxi drivers, they would have a critical input to play as we move forward.
These initiatives have been welcomed with open arms by those in the maxi-taxi fraternity. They are pleased efforts are being made to meet their needs and deal with their concerns. However, they have noted with concern recent media reports which suggest that there is disharmony between Maximen and the Transport Ministry.
And most of the media, they tend to put us like we have a war with the minister. But it's nothing personal with the government or with the minister. We don't have a war. Right? The minister has a job to do. His job, he was elected to look after the people. I have the same job. I was elected to do a job. Right? And I don't think the minister is going to would want me to do less than I could do.
The state, the Transport Ministry, key stakeholders in the transport industry, and the police are all teaming up to deal with those who break the motor vehicle laws. They are calling on all drivers to make the correct choices by refraining from entering the bus route illegally. Once this is accomplished, traffic on the bus route will no longer cut into this country's manpower hours, and maxi-taxi drivers can get at ease knowing that they can earn without having to deal with illegal activities on the route. It is expected that the planning and implementation of many of these initiatives will continue apace. All stakeholders within the transport sector have vowed to meet regularly to chart a new way forward. The policies formulated out of these meetings will be grounded in research and are expected to be rolled out in phases. What's needed now is for citizens to join this cause by obeying the motor vehicular laws. The changes on the way are not just to help maxi drivers, it's geared to help you, the motorist and commuters. It's about reducing traffic congestion, accidents and crime. So play your part. Let's make our roads safer.